Welcome back, everybody, here and online. Muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos de nuevo. Espero que hayan disfrutado.
Good afternoon. I hope you enjoyed your lunch.
Meal. My name is Maria Mabe, and I'm taking over from my colleague Carlos, and I will be accompanying you until the end of this day. So, continuemos este viaje.
So let's continue on this inspiring voyage on the next session.
Future for Wine Tourism. Profesionales procedentes de diversas
Professionals from different areas of the field of wine tourism are going to share their perspectives and also their experiences with specific examples that are going to serve as an inspiration for others to put forward the sustainability in wine tourism.
Diverse experiences with us. We hope that it will serve as inspiration for others to enhance sustainability in wine tourism. Para guiarnos en esta
To guide us in this session, we are presenting from California, Paul Wagner, who's a specialist in marketing and sessions.
welcome all the way from California, Paul Wagner, specialist in marketing and wine tourism from the USA.
Thank you. I am committed to having a dialogue in this session. Actually, more than a dialogue, because a dialogue is between two people, and you are many, but we will have conversations. I will be joined, and I would like to introduce briefly each of the three panelists who will come up and join me, but then I will do a brief presentation, and then reading in your order from right to left, Raquel, and then Joao, and then Roald will do brief presentations. Is my presentation ready to go? There it is, Sustainable Wine Tourism. Excellent. Okay, and there are the three people. So, first of all, I would like to invite up Raquel Ruperez. She is from Bodegas Beronia. And welcome, thank you, have a seat. And Raquel is going to tell us about what her winery does. After that, we will have Joao Barroso from the Alentejo in Portugal. Thanks, Joao. And be careful, Joao is actually an engineer. He actually knows things. And then finally, we have Roald Hepp from Schloss Wohlrads in Germany. And Roald is also a teacher, so you can be sure he will find a way to answer. There we go. Okay, so I have a goal today. I have a number of goals. But when I teach my class on the history of wine, I tell my students, every lecture, you will get one story that's good for a free drink in a bar. My promise to you today is that you will get 3 ideas that you will want to go back to your winery or your region and say, we have to try that. We have had almost 2 full days of theory, and this session is about practice. So the first one I want to point out, this is something Joao knows very well, is a region in California came up with specific rules for sustainability, and they thought, what better way to draw attention to their region than to call them the Lodi rules. So Lodi began this process and is still a leader in this area. In the national parks in the United States, they no longer sell water in plastic bottles. They will sell you a bottle, but it's a metal bottle, and then they have hydration stations around the park. You can fill the bottle wherever you want, but they will not contribute to plastic bottles everywhere on the planet. And you'll notice this bottle actually comes with a place where you can get a sticker for each park. so that you can make your collection as you travel to the parks. I'm waiting for wine regions to adopt this plan. Yosemite National Park, one of the most famous parks in the world, now requires reservations. If you want to drive to the park, you have to get a permit just to enter the park. It's enormous. It might be the size of Rioja, but it's also in places very crowded, so they require reservations. In Machu Picchu, if you hike the Camino Inca to Machu Picchu, you are required to hire a porter. And for those of us who hike in California, we think, I don't need a porter. But in fact, by hiring a porter, it changes the interaction every time you enter a village. Because with no porter, here come 4 Americans with expensive gear walking into a small village, and there's no contact. But when you hire a porter, when you walk into the village, all of the village says, Juan, hey Juan, how are you? And Juan says, it's my village. And it completely changes the attitude of the people in the village, and it transforms the experience of the hikers. The reason I am not in this photo is because I took this photo. The American Hiking Society sells week-long adventures in California's Sierra Nevada, or as we in California say, Sierra Nevada. And the hiking adventure is that for 6 days, you join a ranger and you work on a trail crew. You dig in the dirt, you cut through trees, you do all sorts of heavy labor, and the American Hiking Society sells tickets to this, and there's a waiting list to join these trips. This, from Argentina, I absolutely love, because Mendoza is in fact a long way from the Uco Valley. And a very smart woman decided she was going to organize the Bus Vitivinicola. It picks up tourists at various hotels in Mendoza, takes them on an itinerary of wineries in the Mendoza region, and brings them back to Mendoza at night. And she's very smart, because the next day the same bus does exactly the same thing, except it's to a different selection of wineries. So you can go on the bus once or twice and always get a different experience. The person driving the bus is also trained, certified, knows the region, knows tourism, has all of those things we talked about in our education session. And finally, this is something that came out of COVID. Steve Mathiasen and his wife Jill were very concerned because most of their wine is sold direct to consumer out of their tasting room. And during COVID, they couldn't sell wine this way. And so they made you an offer. If you would buy 6 bottles of wine, Steve, the winemaker, would come to your house to do a tasting via Zoom. And so he did tastings for all of his customers. He gave that personal human connection all via Zoom calls, and he sold a lot of wine. So I'm hopeful that at least one of those ideas can be added to the list. As a final note, I teach at Napa Valley College. We have a wine education center. We just received $12 million from the Wine Spectator to greatly expand our wine program. It will include additional wine hospitality training. And so if you're looking for a model on how to do that, we're your model. Raquel, are you ready? Because here are our speakers. Raquel is in the middle, and she's going to tell us about Bodegas Beronia. You want this?
Please.
If I have it, we'll go quicker.
Yeah, no. Bueno, muchísimas gracias a la...
Thank you very much to the UNWTO for having invited me. I'm a little nervous. You'll have to excuse me. Why do we have González Vías Beronia? Beronia belongs to González Vías, González Vías. So I'll give you a very brief introduction on what it is. Beronia. Our theme is Born Among Friends to be Enjoyed by Friends. Beronia was created by a group of friends who were lovers of wine. They all come from Guipúzcoa, the Basque Country in northern Spain. To give you an idea, it's Tío Pepe, which it's well known for their sherries and their spirits. And now we have the final generation, and it's almost 150 years of history. We have 14 wineries, most of them in Spain, 190 wineries. What does sustainability mean for González Vías? Well, we have this idea of 5 times 5. We have 5 generations taking care of the planet, and the idea is to have a long-term project so that the next generations can enjoy sustainability. The pillars of this strategy of González Vías: we look after the land we grow. Without the vineyard, we're nothing. We always foster techniques which are sustainable agriculture. We recover grape varieties. We look after the animals. Obviously, you have to be as energetically as possible. You have to solar plates, photovoltaic. We look after the water. That's life. We look at the water consumption, close the water circuits. We use very controlled irrigation. We even control it via satellite imagery, and we work to be more sustainable and to be better trained, and we work to be better, to have continuous training. Now, Beronia, we are the first winery in the world to achieve of sustainable version 4 of sustainable building. There's another winery here, which is Perelada, that has version 3. They're the competitors, but it's a winery that you should be visited. What do they certify? Buildings that are leading in energy efficiency and in sustainable design. But it's the construction, the materials, the suppliers. The original winery was created in 73, and it was the dream of these friends that was the reality. In 2018, we decided to build a new winery, and we wanted to make more special wines in a differentiated building. So the new winery is the dream of a family that's looking for they want to reflect their land, and they also want to defend the Rioja brand. We have sustainable agriculture. Architecturally, it's very pretty, and we're always respecting the environment. What we want to do is to bring together naturalness and nature. This is part of the winery. The undergrowth blends into the vineyard, and I love this one because we're transparent in that everything. It has all this glass, and we like to show what we are. Many wineries, they hide stainless steel. It doesn't exist. Of course it exists. And we're very proud to be able to use stainless steel, concrete, wood. This is the barrel room. It's very pretty. This is a self-sustaining staircase. And this is a photo call moment. This is the photo call bottle racks. Then we also have another bottle warehouse, which is much larger. In wine tourism, we got the Best of Wine Tourism Bilbao Rioja in wine tourism, and this is where the more complicated part starts, because being sustainable is really nice, but then you have to make it come true. So visitors, the visitors we receive are very different, and unless they want a private tour, in the same session we might have an architect, an expert in wines, somebody who's coming with their family. So it's complicated sometimes to be able to integrate everything that is happening. Private wineries are different. What are we seeking to offer? As emotional as possible, in a landscape area which is unparalleled. And what is good that we want to do in Beronia? We want to design a landscape more than designing just a winery. There's a more sustainable tourist profile, and we're going to debate this more. More and more after the pandemic, they want open air experiences. So in the winery, because we've got that enormous glass wall, even though you're inside the winery, you get the feeling that you're in the vineyard. All the sustainability, social sustainability is highly valued, and particularly the suppliers. We think that our grape supplier is truly important. That's our true heritage. The architect, it's much more. We go much further. And for Beronia, for the Rioja brand, it is very important to build brand, to build the Rioja brand. If I'm only going to fight for my winery, I'm not going to achieve anything. We have to get more wineries, restaurants, wine shops, wine bars. And this is lovely. But my opinion is that we talk a lot about sustainability and very little is done. Of course, we have to maintain the balance between be sustainable and to sustain oneself. And because sustainability also means being able to stay alive. We have to recover the essence. We have to recover grape varieties. We'll talk about zero impact. We'll talk about 0 kilometer products. And we want to look at future generations, but maybe you're going to come down on me, but we should not only try to make sustainable regions and companies, we should also educate tourists to make sustainable tourists. You have some ideal tourists and some visitors are not so. They throw papers on the ground. Last Saturday, there was a family. I went to another visit, and there were three candy wrappers on the floor. And it's not the child's fault. It's their parents or their grandparents or their caretakers. They don't respect the host. They don't listen to you. The picture. The only thing they find important is to get that picture. But please listen to what I'm saying. They don't take the timetable seriously. You have to be flexible. But, don't come half an hour late. If you do come. And then this last sentence is very important, and I really like it. We want to be sustainable, but for a tasting of 6 wines, I'm not going to say 12 or all references, which in Beronia would be 17, we cannot swirl the glasses. You have to have 1 glass for each glass. You have to have paper, you have to waste a lot of water, and here's where we have to change the mentality. We can't be just throwing paper away. And we want everything, we want it now. They didn't tell you they were coming, you have to manage logistics, you have to prepare some tapas, and you're making them wait. And you say, look at our views. I'm making you wait. Look at the views we've got. Perhaps. How am I doing, Paul? Okay. No, it didn't take too long, no? You will forgive me because I was a little nervous. It's a question of getting brand building and building the Rioja brand and even more the Spain brand. Thank you.
Ahora ya puedo comer y...
Now I can eat.
There will be time. Joao, follow that if you can.
Buenas tardes. Ayer yo tuve un taller de sostenibilidad.
Good afternoon. Yesterday I had a sustainability workshop where I spoke in Spanish, and for reasons of equity, I'm going to give you a very brief presentation in English.
That the Wines of Alentejo had for this session. I'm an employee of the Regional Wine Growing Commission of Alentejo in Portugal. It's an organization that by default does what many others do all over Portugal and pretty much all over the DOC regions in Europe particularly, which is to guarantee the quality of the wines of the denomination of origin of the region, and also to promote the wines internally and externally. The Alentejo one in Portugal, at least, is the only one that has a 3-people sustainability department. And so what I'm here to very briefly present to you is the 10 years of work that we've been doing. And I would start, because this is about wine tourism, and I'm not into wine tourism, really. I'm into sustainability and operations and that stuff. But this was a news that came out in the New York Times in 2021, where the New York Times elected for the first time the 52 regions in the world, or places, that tourists should visit because they were doing some kind of work with regards to a more sustainable world. And in the 7th place, they put the Alentejo region, because we had a sustainable wine making program. And this news was a news in itself. Not only was not the Alentejo region, but it was the Wines of Alentejo Sustainability Program that put it on the map. It was taken by the tourism of Alentejo, was taken by media in Portugal, such as radio, such as television. Many magazines talked about it on how, God behold, Alentejo has been talked about all over the world because of a sustainability program, including in other countries very important for our tourism, as my colleague said in the morning, as Brazil, where this news also came into place. But for those who don't know what Alentejo is or wherever it is, it's in Portugal, and represents 0.3% of vineyards in the world, so we're pretty much inexpressive, okay? Nevertheless, in Portugal, we represent 12% of the area, because indeed we represent 1/3 of the area of the country, approximately the size of Belgium, and in Portugal we are the #1 sales region with 35% in volume and 38% in volume, and value, and indeed with regards to value of Portuguese wines, Alentejo does indeed represent a very interesting amount of value. So in 2015, or in fact in 2013, we decided that for 2 very simple reasons. Climate change is here, it exists, Alentejo has experienced it for almost 2 decades now, so we needed to do something to boost our resilience. And also we export, and we were exporting to markets where we were being asked, what's the weight of your bottle? How do you treat your employees? What's your relationship with your ecosystems? How much water do you spend? And one producer, 2 producers could answer the question, but the region couldn't. Yet Chile could, California could, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. And so there was clearly in 2013 a train that had left the station, and we were trying to hop on the last carriage of that same train. And so indeed, we didn't decide to reinvent the wheel, because it's been invented for almost 5,000 years. So we basically went to see what was being done around the world that was well done, particularly for us, in our case, Chile and Argentina, drought countries, heat wave countries, bold red wines. So it made all sense to talk with those people, and indeed, based on that, and based in a group that we created with wine producers and universities, we created our own system based in 3 main pillars: viticulture only, because we have producers that only produce grapes; Cellars, because we have cooperatives. It's something very strong, the cooperative system in Alentejo. And obviously vitivinicultures that do both of it. And we basically look at the evaluation of winemaking on a life cycle perspective, a very cross-sectional analysis from the installation of a vineyard to a bottle ready to be shipped into wherever in the world. So we look at everything: soil, water, energy, pests, diseases, people, community, socioeconomics, biodiversity, packaging, air quality, whatever. So we're talking about 18 chapters of evaluation with 171 criteria of assessment, okay? And so what did we, I only have 10 minutes, so this needs to be short and sweet. So in 2015 we launched it. We started thinking of it in 2013, launched it in 2015. By the end of year one, we had 91 members. By the way, free of charge and voluntary. So nobody in the Alentejo region that makes DOC wines is forced to be in this project. Nobody pays to be in the project. Nobody pays to benefit from every basically free consultancy on sustainability that the Regional Wine Growing Commission provides to our members. So 91 members by year one, 20% of the area of vineyards in the program. We have a self-evaluation system that then obviously is duly tracked by our team and eventually by third party. But at the time, 77 self-evaluations. We do a lot of knowledge sharing events where basically we benchmark best practices between producers. At the time, we had one made with 21 participants, and then time passed. And so up to today, we're actually almost 650 members. We have 60% almost of the vineyard area in Alentejo is in the program. This does not mean it's sustainably produced. It means it's in the program. It means it's doing its, roads, but it does not mean it's sustainable at all. Having said that, we do have a third-party certification that we launched in 2020, and yes, we have almost 25% of the area certified sustainably produced. Not sustainable, I don't believe in the word sustainability as per se. That's an abstract concept. We can talk about the most sustainable as possible. And so within that framework of thinking, we have 25% of area producing in the most sustainable way possible. Represents 33% of the wines in Alentejo right now, so 1 in every 3 bottles has a stamp of sustainability. And indeed, after almost 10 years, we went from 77 self-evaluations to more than 1,000. We opened a good, I like to believe, a good Pandora box. We have 27 partnerships with stakeholders, regional, national, and international. We've made 72 knowledge-sharing events with more than 2,000 people, and bear in mind, these 2,000 people are Alentejo wine-growing staff. So producers, their staff, from the vineyard, from the cellar, from the wine tourism, whatever. These events, obviously, everybody can come to them, but they are made from Alentejo to Alentejo. We also train people on waste management, water management, energy management, sustainability, climate change, biodiversity, communication for sustainability. More than 1,000 people have been trained by us free of charge in these last 10 years. And we also have been recognized for some weird reason. So we got 10 awards in 10 years, funnily enough. Means we kind of have an average of one award per year, which is, it's interesting. And with this third-party certification, we have, at the moment, 20 certified third-party producers. So why has this been so successful, apparently? And I have, I think it's 5 bullets, and after every bullet, I have a picture of a best practice of one of our certified producers. Not all of them, just a couple of them, just for you to give a flavor of what these people do. So this project is about community. I often say that when I got to Alentejo, when this program started, the wine growers in Alentejo only met in 2 places. In wine fairs, where everybody's competing for the same customer, and in the shelves of supermarkets, where they, again, are just competing for the same customer. Here they don't. They get together in knowledge sharing events, they get together in trainings that we do, and it's actually nice to see these people that are actually friends sharing. They don't share the secret of the wine, but they for sure share the secret of the investment on the best practice that gives them a return on this investment and reduces by default their impacts. An example, a bat box. So this is an hotel for bats. Bats are very, very voracious mammals that eat, on average, 5 times their weight per night. And by fomenting the presence and the attraction of bats, they go into the vineyards, they eat, and we know they eat because we then test their guano, and the DNA analysis reveals that what's in there are, in fact, the leftovers of plagues of, in fact, in our case, both vineyard and olive grove, which is cool because most of these producers have both of these cultures. We also understood that a regional wine growing commission is far more than just an organization that puts stamps on DOC wines. It's a catalyzer of change in a region because we can talk with virtually whoever we want, from regional government to universities to research and development institutions to NGOs. Everybody wants to talk to us, and we want to talk with everybody. So indeed, we created this massive network, as I showed you, 24 different organizations from the Red Cross to universities to the FSC to God knows are working with us. Pardon me? Wines of Volunteers Sustainability Program. Sorry.
We won't charge that against your minutes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But you're running short.
Okay, no worries. So if I'm running short, I'm going to be really fast. Sheep in the vineyard, they replace herbicides, basically. It's flexible and adaptive. So we have a very different reality in Alentejo, big producers that make, for our reality, 10 million, 15 million bottles, and then very small 100,000 bottles, 150 people, companies, a father and a son. So we need to have flexibility and adaptiveness so that our system works with every single producer. Wastewater reuse. So this is a producer that uses wastewater from a municipal wastewater treatment plant, so from the bathrooms and the kitchens of the people in the pueblo next to where they are, and they use this water, they clean it adequately, they treat it, and then they use it in their vineyards because they just simply don't have water. The producers are participants, they're not just beneficiaries. We make them think, we make them act, we make them involve, we make them share, so they're just not there to receive whatever we give them. These guys at Malhadinha Nova, they recovered as you can see, a piece of architecture totally run down to put employees so they could attract people to come and work in a humanly desertified region. And this system works on a self-evaluation basis that forces accountability on producers because they are then tested against whatever they answer, and they need to prove whatever they answer, and if you don't prove, get out of here because it's not cool. Often they actually, they answer below what they actually are because they're too afraid of answering whatever. Water. So there's a flow meter to understand how much water are we using in a cellar in order that we reduce, because you can't measure if you can't control if you don't measure. So to control, you need to measure, and also you need to train your staff so that staff understands why the hell are you creating all of these new procedures and giving you all of these tools that you need to understand what you use them for. And obviously, at the end, third-party certification, so it's not us saying we're doing a good job. Our accredited organizations by the Portuguese quality system, they come and say we're good. Another producer that uses organic waste from the vineyard to make beauty products. Okay, so an example of circular economy. These are certified producers at the time, only 20. We've been getting the awards I told you. Just very briefly, the one I really like is that liaison one, which is from the European Commission. Not about sustainability or sustainable development, but because of the capacity of creating knowledge-sharing networks. Okay? So you're a true actor of change in a region. If we were a triangle, it would be like this. We currently, on 2023, just launched or are about to launch a WASP 2.0 version, so we need to change. 10 years passed, a lot of stuff matured, things need to change, and we changed them. And because we were the first ones, and this is where wine tourism comes into the picture, they can drink from this, they can learn from this. The projection that a project like this, through awards, through activities, through whatever it is we do, puts us on news in Portugal and abroad, and the winemakers, the producers can clearly get a benefit from this. I don't know if they do it, honestly, but they sure should, because indeed that's what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Wow. Joe, you are much better looking than your photos, huh? Roald, it's up to you now.
Yeah, what should I say?
A few things that you know.
How's this working?
Okay. Yeah, you good?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to commit that our session is most probably the most difficult session for all of you, because it's right after lunch break. And not only after lunch break, we had a wonderful, very generous and hospitable wine evening last night. When I look into your faces, I see a few of you enjoyed it a lot. And then a lunch break, so it makes this session quite difficult timing. I have to correct Paul. I'm not a professor and I'm not a lecturer. This is just a best practice example I'm delivering to you. And I would like to welcome the most important guest to this conference, to the 7th conference in wine tourism, which has not been welcomed so far. I would like to welcome the future. Sitting third row from the top, a little Nigerian baby, well behaved. This, ladies and gentlemen, is just an example how sweet the future of wine tourism can be. All our explanations, all our statistics, all our expertise is based on backward data. Right over there, the future is sitting and watching us carefully and quiet and well behaved. So, welcome. I think it's worth spending at least 1 minute of my limited time to the future.
Absolutely.
I have to apologize. I'm not a native English speaker, and I'm not a native Spanish speaker. I understand Spanish, but I cannot cope with the sheer speed of the Spanish native speakers, so I apologize for speaking not Spanish, but English, and not as a native speaker. And I think the only people who really enjoy my slow speed in talking are the simultaneous translators who are having a good time with me now. I learned from Joe that at the beginning of a speech you should bring up a question, and my question is, are these people running Schloss Vollrath's, a winery in Germany, are completely crazy? Are they nuts? They're just growing one single grape variety, just Riesling. How can they dare to put all eggs into one basket? In terms of global warming, times of global warming, are they completely crazy? So Joe said the second question should be covering some data, figures. It's not only a winery. We're doing 550 events. Our event department covers about 25 permanently employed people. And the lesson I would share with you is all the W questions you already know. Where are we? Who are we? What are we doing? Why doing things the way we're doing? Wine tourism, where to go, and what's the challenge? So I see that those who were a little bit sleepy after lunch are back to attention now. This is Schloss Vollrath's. We are a monopoly estate in the middle of our own vineyards. The forest is belonging to us. It's a natural preserve and a birds preserve since about 80 years. Direct hiking, cycling trains are going through our vineyards. We are 30 minutes to Frankfurt Airport. We are near to train stations, motorways. UNESCO World Heritage Sites are very close to our estate, so we are perfectly located. Who are we? We are a very well-known wine estate, going back to Roman times, Roman foundations. The tower you see here is based on Roman foundations. We are selling wine as long as nobody from you come up with another proof, longer than any other estate in the world. The first ever known invoice showing the sales of wine is not from Georgia or Armenia or Turkey, or because they lost the records. We still have our records. Our records go back to 1211, when the first wine sales are documented. The first classification was not done in Bordeaux. It was done at Schloss Vollrath in 1716, and we are certified bioorganic farming. You see the logos Fair Choice and the European logo here since 2023, because German administration works a little bit slower than in other countries. We lost 1 year. What is our relation to wine events and tourism? We are doing, as I said before, about 550 events a year, and this is the after COVID statistics. Prior to COVID, we were a little bit higher. We're still about to recover from COVID depression. We were higher than, or we did more than 600 events a year, and now we are still catching up. And we do almost everything which can be related to wine seriously. Wine and food in a known restaurant since 1976. Wine and work, we let customers participate in the work in the vineyard and the cellar. Wine and nature, wine and learn, wine and music. We've owned concerts on premise. Wine and walk, wine and art, wine at night, wine and history, wine and fun, wine and habit. Name it, we have it. For all our events, why is sustainability? That's one of the big issues and questions for this conference. Why is it so essential? If you have such a long history, going back to Roman times, you want to extend it to the next generation. I'm just a caretaker for one generation, and my task is it to hand over to the next generation a little bit better than I've taken over from the previous generation. So sustainability is essential for continuing history and tradition. And there are just a few examples. A few of them have been mentioned before. No disposable tableware and cutlery, reduced paper, no plastic water bottles, only glass water bottles, use existing building rather than energy intense setups, no outdoor heating, own production of food and things you can relate to wine, and very important, long-term customer relationship to develop common strategies for sustainability, cruise ship lines, tour operators, tourist agencies, and long-term staff relationship. Very hard to achieve. Both very hard to achieve. How do we realize our advertising, communication, and emotionalizing strategies? We use all kinds of communication. PR to the press and media side, mailings to our a little bit more advanced and older customers, social media to the younger world, Zoom invitations and activities to give real tasting experience created basically by COVID times, emotional videos, whatever. But the secret behind is to link it all, to combine it all. There's not one of those factors which gives you the guarantee for success. It's about the combination. Okay. Staff was a very important topic throughout this seminar, and I feel the same. Staff for me, and this is our most dedicated staff member who did that digital presentation for me because I don't have the skills to do that. Staff, if you take the abbreviation, staff needs to be skilled, of course. It needs to be trained, or let's say well-trained. Staff needs to be attentive towards staff colleagues and customers or guests, focused in what they're doing, and flexible. because we need to adapt and adjust our strategies almost every day. Wine tourism, where are we and where are we going to? For us, it's essential to find solutions to turn a seasonal wine tourism from Easter to October into an all year round wine tourism. That's essential to employ our staff year round and to offer them really good wages and payment. So far in Germany, we have basically what I've seen in all the other statistics as well, a predominant number of regional or let's say national attendees to our wine tourist programs. We need to turn this into international approach. We need to attract more international customers or guests. And, that's a little bit hidden, from group activities to individual activities, and also the other way around, from individual tourist activities to group activities. Not all programs could be used for groups and individuals, but it's worth thinking about it. How can I turn group activities into activities for individual customers and the other way around? What needs to be sorted out in terms of the future is, of course, legal requirements, and nobody in this entire auditorium talked about the data security issues. We face a lot of these security data requirements in Germany. We are not allowed to collect data from our customers. They need to sign that we are allowed to collect the data. Even if they buy wine and they give us the address for delivery, we are not allowed to use this address for a second purpose. They need to give us the permission. So these things will come up more and more. Marketing, weather, global warming, of course, quality insurance, logistics, number of participants, lots of open questions. And I think the answer to all these questions is that we need to cooperate more and more and to share best practice examples, and also to share what your main topic is, Paul, what works and what doesn't work. So what's the challenge for the future? In 1980, it was important as a winery, a part of the wine industry, to own vineyards and a cellar, full stop. In 2000, it was important to win accolades and have a good wine journalist network, Parker, whatever. 2020, it was important to hire or have already built a unique design, state-of-the-art winery with a very famous architect. In 2030, the future, it will be important to have the best staff, because the staff sorts out the problems at the end of the day. And staff qualification is essential. Fast and attractive marketing is essential. Effective communication will become more and more essential. Digital formats combined with all other elements of marketing will become more and more important, even if they cannot substitute the entire marketing. Wine industry needs to become more attractive for staff. We need to cope with the level of wages which are paid in other areas. And quality, sustainability, and authenticity needs to be provable and unique. So that's what I feel about the future of wine tourism, and I'm very happy to see that the future joined, at least with one single person, this conference. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. I've just lost my microphone. That'll teach me to stand up again. We could start easily. I have, as you may have already realized, I often have a lot of questions. But instead of using my questions, I thought we'd reverse the tables a little bit and say, who among you has a question? For, first of all, a wonderful panel of people who shared some wonderful ideas. But who has a question? Right here. And don't worry, if they run out,
I'm afraid of that.
Hello?
Yep.
Yes, now. Thank you for all the presentations. My question goes for Roald Hepp. I was impressed to hear that you are able to have up to 25 people of staff dedicated to events in your winery, if I remember right. And you also said that it's very important to keep them all year long. How do you manage to keep 25 people in staff for a full year?
great question.
Very good question.
Yeah.
First of all, we use flexibility in terms of working hours. So they do over hours in the summer, and they can take the hours in the winter season. And then also we try to do some events in the winter season, such as Christmas markets, mulled wine events, guided tours in the winter season, torch tours with kids in the castle, and also our restaurant staff. We use our restaurant staff to send these guys to our export countries. We export our wines to about 50 different export destinations, and our head chef and some of the chefs from the kitchen, they go to other countries in the winter season and do food and wine pairings in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in where we sell our wines to promote our wines. But basically, the big thing is the flexibility to use over hours we need to have in the summer, and then do 3 days and 3 weeks in the winter season. So flexibility was one of the topics I mentioned with staff. One of the F's was dedicated to flexibility, and this is basically because of the flexibility of using the over hours in low season times. And I have to say one thing more. Not all of the 25 are full-time year-round. A few are also like 60% or 40% employed, and then it's easier.
Danke.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a great question, and it also underlines something that I think all of us will agree, which is this doesn't happen by accident. This is a plan, this is a strategy, this is a company philosophy. This isn't just, oh, we're getting busy, we need more staff, but rather a real vision of the kind of company you want to be in charge of. So, congratulations. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for all your presentations too. My question is about sustainability on wine tourism. Okay, most of the cases that we've seen, like maybe Raul was at the best combined with the wine tourism. We've been seeing examples about sustainability when wine making or the building of the wineries, etc. So I do understand that that's the easiest thread to pull to start with sustainability, as you all said, like the most sustainable way or the most sustainable, as there's not a top or we cannot see a top or the end of that. Okay, but when we translate that to tourism, we should start just by the water, or because tourism, and this is one conversation that went up in one of those tables out there, it's not it's not sustainable on itself. Mm-hmm. Okay, we can just try to attract different, like international people to try to just grow the target for budgets, etc. But at the same time, that people or those tourists are taking a plane to reach our places, and that's from the beginning unsustainable. And they're being hosted in a 5-star hotel with a very nice buffet for breakfast. Okay, so that's just 2 points that are unsustainable. But so despite from the fact of the water, what else, and the plastic avoiding, what else what we can do? Because I think that that's only the point of the iceberg when we are talking about tourism, okay? If we just keep a shorter amount of water, or if we just, I don't know, try to just replace the plastic for any other material, that's just the very top. Because the big trace is another one, and we are not facing it. Or I'm thinking we are not facing it. I don't know. Which is your opinion?
I agree, 100%. When we talk about wine tourism, we begin with original sin. Because there is no way for tourists to arrive at our winery without being, while being sustainable. They are unsustainable the minute they get in their car, whether it's they drive to visit us or whether they drive to the airport to visit us. So that is absolutely not classical sustainable business. But I would suggest a couple of things. One of them, and some of the folks up here touched on it, locals. I think not enough wineries pay enough attention to the local community, not only as a source of tourism. As we all know, no man is a prophet in his own land. No winery is a tourist destination in its own region. We have travelers who come from around the world to visit our wineries in Germany and Portugal and Spain and Azerbaijan, and yet the people who live 10 kilometers down the road do not visit the winery because, But those same people, when their visitors on a holiday come to visit them for the holidays, they will be asked, "We've been here 2 days, what is there to do?" And they then become a concierge who can direct visitors to various places. And if you reach out to them and develop a local market for your tourism, that local market will eventually become a referral system that will refer families and friends to your winery. And that is certainly more sustainable. But I suspect, I know Roel has something he wants to say on this, and Joao as well, so let's let everybody talk.
Go for it.
I absolutely agree to your basic comment as well, but in terms of making wine tourism more approachable to international guests, you can think of flying guests in or out, and I absolutely agree with your criticism. But in Germany, we have like 100,000 Japanese permanent residents, and they hardly dare to go into a winery. We have even more Chinese. We have lots of people living in Germany as foreign residents. And I'm not talking about people who are, because of religious reasons or ethnical reasons, are not very strongly related to wine. I talk to people who are interested in spending money, and they don't need to travel further distances than the locals or the national German wine tourists. So my first step in developing further customers for our wine tourism programs is to see how can I attract the Japanese living in Germany, the Chinese living in Germany, 100,000 of Americans living in Germany. And yesterday, in all the yesterday's sessions, language skills were really a very important topic. And this is what our staff needs to be able to cope with. To not only, our staff doesn't need to speak Japanese or Chinese, but English. At least to be friendly and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I try to make it easier for these customers living already in Germany to get access to our wine tourism programs." And if you start it, you will see that it's like a domino effect.
Yes.
If you have the first Japanese from a faraway town like Düsseldorf or Berlin coming, they spread the word of mouth within their community. But give them a very good first impression.
Great answer. Yeah. Joao, you have some ideas.
I'm going to stay seated if you don't mind, because you're all sitting up.
You relax.
I'm feeling pressured. But first of all, really, really interesting question. I really think that there's a lot of, it's a very complex issue, sustainability, sustainable development, rather. It's very complex, and we currently, in the Western world particularly, live in a very soundbite society these days, where everything is quick and fast and, funnily enough, disposable. And so if you ask me, and I'm in a bit of the advantage position here because I don't own any vineyards or any wineries. I just work with a lot of them, it's true, but my role is somewhat different. And in my opinion, I think there's an elephant in the room that it has been addressed in the morning, but it was not really fully addressed as it should, called climate change. And climate change is something that it's definitely endangering, and I stress, endangering the status quo of winemaking. That's why, and we talked about this at lunchtime, funnily enough, I don't see many people from winemakers, well, I don't see many winemakers, period, which is weird too.
That's a good thing.
But I don't see anybody, and probably would be interesting to see people here from Sweden, or from the UK, or from Lithuania, or from Canada, which are probably, if nothing changes, and unfortunately it does not seem to be going to change, will be probably the places doing the good wines in 30, 40 years' times from now. Having said that, I strongly believe that what we should be focused on is on a resilient system in the vineyard, because that's where the problem happens. It's not in a cell is a fully defined, limited environment where you can pretty much control 100% of what happens inside. But you can't control if it rains or not, you can't control a weird pest, you can't control the degradation of your soil and the degradation of your organic matter. So it's clearly in the vineyard that needs to happen a very incisive reaction. So if you ask me, is recycling important? Of course, but is it definitive for the survival of the industry at all? Resilience in your system, in your agriculture system, in your vineyard, definitely. You need to create a system that endures a heat wave. You need to create a system that endures a lack of water, or by default, a bomb of water that drops in 3 hours, which should drop in a week. And so, if you ask, what should we do? And in fact, I would also risk saying, without having no statistics to prove what I'm saying, that probably there's far more people from urban regions visiting vineyards than from rural regions. Meaning to say with this, that an urban person that is not that used to a rural environment will be far more fascinated with whatever happens in the vineyard than a guy from the countryside or a woman from the countryside, because they are used to nature per se. And so indeed, if you do have an interesting, transformative, particularly on regenerative agriculture strategies on your vineyard, this might be a very interesting pitch, pardon the redundancy, on your wine tourism strategies, because you talk about what people really want to know besides the wine, which is nature. Nature is the ecosystem services approach is very interesting, not only from a state of mind, but on the state of all the synergies, and interactions, and symbiosis that happen within a natural system. So my take would be, if you really, and just to finish, another thing that's very much soundbite these days is carbon footprint. Everybody talks about that. The wine industry talks a lot about carbon footprint. And I tell you that the wine industry, overall in the world, carbon footprint or carbon emissions are represented by 4 main industries: housing, energy consumption, or energy production rather, and transports. And then the 4th is agriculture, indeed. Of this agriculture, half of it is dairy products, or animals. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of the other half, winemaking represents 0.3% of world emissions. It's negligible. So if you want to put some money somewhere, put it in your vineyard rather than your carbon footprint assessment. Because, okay, great, reduce the bottle weight, great, you'll save money and you'll save emissions. But what will define the survival of your industry is what you're going to be doing in the field rather than wherever else. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my take.
And before Roald adds one more thing, one of the things I believe very strongly is that when people do wine tourism, when they walk into a winery, they are not really interested in finding a wine. They can find a wine in their local wine shop. What they're interested in finding is a local human connection. And that means personal interaction. And that does not require you getting on an airplane. Now, I have met a couple of folks here who know friends of mine, where we have been able to share information on LinkedIn and connect with my friends, and those connections have been made over years, and we are now friends. My brother went to a conference recently where the entire conference was held virtually, but as part of the program you received when you registered for the conference, you had to walk virtually in a hallway virtually, And all the other attendees, when they were walking, when they were moving, you could see them in the hallways. And so if you saw a friend of yours, it would give you a bing, and you could then have a Zoom conversation with that person while you were attending the conference virtually. There are ways to take advantage of this. Again, what tourists really want, they want to make a friend in the wine region. They want to make a friend in the wine industry. And it's possible to make friends. Mark Zuckerberg has taught us this. It's possible to make friends without actually meeting them in the flesh for a while. So another option. Roald.
Yeah, I would like to contribute to what has been said before. I really appreciate this question because it nails it down. And I think digitalization offers us the chance to improve sustainability. Just for that single reason, you don't need to travel anymore. And if you travel, I think it's a little bit our responsibility as companies or businesses in the wine tourism industry to focus our customers and say, okay, if you travel all the way, you can compensate your carbon footprint by whenever you book online on trains or on flights, you can add a little money to compensate your carbon footprint. And I think we need to think about using this tool as an advertising, but also as a sustainability tool in all our advertising and marketing activities.
Good. Other questions? I hope they're all that good.
Paul, can I say something, please?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you know, you're allowed to ask questions too.
No.
Raquel.
Are you sure? Bueno, voy a hablar en español porque estamos...
I'll speak in Spanish because we're in Spain, and I like to use the local language. I think that you hit the nail on the head. We shouldn't make such an effort on machinery in the origin, in the source, and the field. And with the idea, this notion of sustainability, it's like when we were all in the world of quality, there was all certifications, and I was click, I do this, these checklists, no? And we have to show more, that the human factor is more. And it's important that we always say that wineries are the world of food. It's the world of leisure. When you're drinking a glass of wine, except when you're doing a professional tasting, you're with your family, with your friends, with your partner, and you come home after a day and then you say, you know, I'm going to enjoy myself. So that's the important thing, is the human factor. They're coming to your home. You have to welcome them, but they have to have a good time. You don't have to do a master tasting. You shouldn't show all the parts of the winery. It's a question of them having a good time. It's not important to say or how you say it, but how you make them feel. And it's very difficult to be concrete. So what we try to do is explain everything we do in terms of sustainability. And it gives a lot of value to the grape supplier, to all the parts that form part of the, all the people that form part of the winery. You're on a tour and they're surprised that they say, you know, goodbye, Ivan, you know, so they can see that we're all part of this, you know, we're all part of this leisure industry.
About this, so this should be entertaining. But when you were talking about how you communicate sustainability and how important it is, one of my clients had a very sustainable vineyard, followed all the regulations, was certified, and they came to me and they said, you know, we need to tell people about this. We have this certification with this level, with this number of reduced impacts, blah, 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 blah. And I said, you know, consumers, they don't understand the difference between natural, sustainable, organic, biodynamic, and they actually think most wine is pretty natural, pretty healthy. You know? But I said, one of the things that you told me a year ago was that every summer your children like to camp, to sleep out in the vineyard. That's the way to explain sustainability. You have a 7-year-old child who sleeps in the vineyard. That's how you farm your vineyard. And if you explain that, you will not have to explain the certifications and the levels and everything else, because they will know these are people who care about their vineyards enough that they left their children sleep in them.
That's the American way.
Absolutely. We have a question in the front row from the Spanish way.
Okay, this is Manu from Aro. How do you like the question, Raquel, in Spanish or in English? Bueno, okay, guys, take the translator device because I'm going to speak Spanish.
Raquel, one thing that I'm interested about in thinking in creating a future in wine tourism, you form part of a group, González Vías. It's a very large traditional group. And wine lovers, for a wine lover, Tío Pepe is not the same thing as a Baronia. This critical mass that you get from a group, which has a lot of advantages, can it be a barrier when it comes to focusing that wine tourism? Because I don't think there's somebody in González Vías that might want to visit all the wineries owned by González Vías in the world, because somebody may like a Rioja and they might not like a Galician wine. So this evolution, this integration of wineries in this future of wine tourism, which I totally agree with. We're talking about the fact that wine tourism and is more than food, it's experiences, where people, when they go, the wine is the end of the tour. Yesterday, many people escaped down Vivanco to get a picture next to the barrel. So this phenomenon, which is now relatively new in Rioja, and does it help or does it pose some problems?
Como por partes.
Okay, well, one thing at a time. One of the things that we have changed in Baronia is that we provide a welcoming wine with some French fries, some chips. Then we give another wine with some chorizo and salchichon in the barrel room, and we finish with another wine with cheese. If they tell us about intolerances or allergies, of course we adapt. I think the welcoming wine is essential. Even if it's 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm receiving you in my home. For several reasons, it's important. If somebody arrives earlier, you give them a welcoming wine, but there's always people who come late. The other person is waiting, but well, they're having a glass of wine, so it's a different thing. And I was talking about this with a friend the other day. You have the 3 wines at the end, and you have with that visit, and nobody gets up. It's 11. They come at 11 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock, and they say, well, maybe I can do the next tour. You have to be sustainable, and you have to maintain yourself. You have to sustain yourself. Being part of a large group is complicated. Baronia is in a town in Ollauri, which is in the outskirts of Ollauri, which is in the outskirts of Aro. Well, you could walk from the village to the winery if it's not raining, if it's not too hot out. We're not in the railway station quarter, but you have to go there. So the headquarters are in Jerez with 240,000 people. Nothing to do with the marketing that you have to do for a winery like Tío Pepe, than Beronia, than Aguilar Now, or Viñas del Duero, Pacos de Luxco. They're all different. It's very complicated to understanding the profitability of certain wineries which do not get 180,000 visitors a year. And it's complicated because marketing is global. And, well, but we're going to try it because I think we have all the possibilities in the world. And also the way of communicating. We're sustainable. In other wineries, it worked okay. I've also worked in the world of hotels. It's leaving some brochures. Prescriptors for establishments are fundamental. Small accommodation, your rural housing, your bed and breakfast. But now it's sustainable to leave brochures. It's not easy. But, well, muy bien.
Story about what Raquel was just talking about. I was brought in as a consultant once in Priorat, and it was a combination. It was a wine tourism meeting. There were 6, 7 wineries and 3 hotels because in Priorat there are no hotels. And we started talking about the way tourists spent their day. And the wineries all said, we love the tourists because they love to go on the tours and they love to do the tastings. And the hotels said, no, they don't. They said they're perfectly happy to go on one tour at the beginning of the day, but after that they come back to the hotel and they say, dear God, we had to sit through the same explanation of the vineyard 3 times in one day. And they look at it, they don't look at it as a positive thing, they look at it as a tax they pay in order to taste the wine. So if you are giving the same tour in the afternoon that you're giving in the morning, you are telling your customers, we don't know anything about you, we don't care what you think, you're going to do it our way or you get no wine.
Yeah, but that's quite easy to sort out, you know, if people...
It is.
If groups come to our place and they have been visiting 2 other wineries before, that's the easiest way to deal with it. Just ask them, what do you expect me to do for you to make you feel good and happy? That's it.
Yes.
So it's nothing wrong with asking.
The first words out of every host's mouth should always be a question.
Yeah.
Where have you been? What have you been doing? Then we can make it work.
¿Has visitado otras bodegas? ¿Qué bodegas has visitado de la zona?
Have you visited other wineries? What wineries have you visited? Because if they have visited one with a historic cellar, then you have to take that into account. I like to go, when they come, I like to know where they've been. Because if they have talked a lot about malolactic fermentation, I'm not going to tell them about malolactic fermentation. And they tell you the alcoholic fermentation, malolactic fermentation, then you get bored. So it's important to know where they've been, because there are wineries that don't show you the winery because they have a wonderful wine, and they say, here we are.
In the tasting room, because you don't know when that person walks in the door if it's the first winery of their life or if they are a master of wine. Yes. And you have about 15 seconds to find out. And what you do is you ask questions.
Can I, Paul?
Speaking of which...
Paul, can I just add something?
Yes, because they have questions they want to ask.
It's brief. One thing that we also see, at least in Alentejo, is that there's often a strong disconnection between the knowledge on sustainability from the vineyard to the cellar to the wine tourism.
Yes.
Meaning, if somebody that actually is interested in whatever efforts you're doing in this particular field, you'll start asking it from the wine tourist person, and they'll say, yeah, sure, water, we do water, yeah, we do cover cropping, and that's it, ends there. And often, we also find that with regards to best practices in sustainability, the communication between the vineyard manager and the cellar manager does not exist. And so this clearly needs to change. There needs to be a kind of a monthly training between the whole team saying, what are we doing? Let's show what we're doing. Let's all learn what we're doing, so that the communication can be formatted in one way, consistent, and that everybody is on the same page saying the same stuff, rather than one saying once and the other saying the other, and that's very important.
Yes.
Seems to me.
Yep. Question here, at least, I know.
Buenas tardes otra vez. Volviendo un poco a...
Good afternoon again. Going back to what we're talking about cooperation and integration in the territory. It is fundamental to listen, to first ask and then listen, and it's fundamental to cooperate with the agencies. But when you see an agency organizing a tour, the agency tells them what they've done, what they're going to do, and what they want. If those clients that go to the hotel had used one of these magnificent agents that we have in La Rioja, they wouldn't have had that problem. Maybe in the hotel, if we're cooperating, in the hotel they should say, look, I know there's excellent guides that can take you throughout La Rioja. They're going to show you the wines, and then they're going to show you the monastery of Suso, and then in the afternoon they're going to take you for a walk in the mountains. We're talking about wine tourism as an integrating factor, and we're still talking about what people should do when they go to a winery.
In there. Am I correct? Okay, now we have a question. Okay.
Hay una cuestión. ¿Por qué pedimos a los poderes?
There's a question. Why do we ask political powers to collaborate with others, and we are not capable of cooperating with other people if we're not ordered to do so?
Stab it. Joel?
I can start. So in our case, our organization is a private, non-profit, of public interest organization. What we did in Alentejo, and we still are doing it, there's an expression in English which is beyond compliance. So it means that you're not waiting for the regulator to act, you act before the regulator. Mm-hmm. And in fact, this is what's still happening today in Portugal with regards to sustainability systems in wine regions in the country. We are still 10 years later the only wine region with a sustainability program. We have a third-party certification. Everybody's kind of going afterward, but they're pretty much, what they're trying to do is they understood there's a competitive advantage in the market, so they're trying to, get there. But above all, what happened was there was a private organization that took an initiative, organized itself, had the benefit of already being an association of producers, proposed something to these producers. These producers had, fortunately, the vision to understand that this was an added value suggestion, and everybody started working collaboratively, and Hellas, 10 years later, we have a very successful, I would risk saying, and pardon me, but I would risk saying probably as a critical mass, probably Alentejo is the most sustainably produced region in the whole of Europe, because you don't find 6,000 hectares, all certified sustainable in Europe. And this was just because one single organization, private, that again, very easily could connect and create bridges with all of these governance bodies, private and public, and that's how it works. So basically what I'm trying to say is it was a sector in itself through one catalyzing organization that exploded in every direction in order to do the change that you want ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the way, you're most welcome to come and visit. We are an open book. Like we drank from other people, we would love you to drink. This doesn't sound right. You're all very welcome to come to Alentejo, because I'll share with you, just 2 years ago, and I was saying this to Paul, we had 30 British vintners. We were contacted by Britain as a sustainable program, and the head of the program contacted me, asked, look, would you be keen if we organize a trip, a field trip, a study visit to Alentejo? They came, I contacted 8 different producers through a whole week. They were 30 English people in a bus going around Alentejo. They did a training with us in our own house. They went home, sent me a list of findings of best practices. You're most welcome, particularly to probably understand how we organize ourselves, because that's, I think, what's the key, because obviously, and this is a very good example, you have great examples in Spain and in Rioja, but maybe as a region you don't. So how do you organize as a region? Come and visit us, we're more than happy to help.
Be careful.
Mira, la cuestión es que además muchas veces queremos desestacionalizar, ¿no? Y
sometimes we want to unseason or go out of season. So we're having some people in January and there are no open restaurants. And I have to ask restaurants to please open. I have to ask them to open exclusively. It's an internal meeting. It's not that you have to they have to open the restaurant for you. I live in the Aro region, and Monday or a Tuesday in Aro. Paula's here, I think. Who's a colleague from Ramon Bilbao in Aro. You go, they come to your winery, they make the effort of coming in midweek. Where can we go and have something? And you go, well, so that's where, we have to build our brand. And maybe an agency is fine. On Monday, you better visit Logroño, where you're going to have more open establishments. And then, of course, I'll be sincere. You go to a bar, you ask for 3 crianzas. They give you 3 different glasses. One of them is dirty. The staff, and what you were saying, people have to be prepared and they have to be more professional. You're going to tell me I'm being excessively sincere today. Any otras preguntas?
In the back.
Sí, hola, ¿cómo están? Buenas tardes a todos.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm going to try to speak in Spanish and not in Chilean. This question is for Raquel. You were saying that in the vineyard you received in a normal visit from people, a normal tour, people who are, from beginners to experts. How do you handle this kind of experience in terms of your narrative, taking account that you're talking about sustainability? The welcoming glass of wine gives you the opportunity of talking with them in a more intimate moment if you were just telling them a speech. But you have to ask. You have to ask because maybe while some are admiring the architecture, you can explain the alcoholic fermentation to the other person, even if they're within a group. And you can adapt your discourse. And you should also think that it's true that we have internalized the discourse, and it's very difficult to change, but we should do that. And if you see somebody's bored, then we're not doing things properly. The visits with children or without children. If they're children, I'm happy. I'll make sure that they're entertained because if the child is happy, the mother's happy, but you're focusing on the child. So open tours are very complicated, and normally they tell you.
I have a solution. First of all, whenever anyone arrives, they're asked 3 questions. How are you? Because if they're anything other than happy, you want to know why. Where have you been today? What have you done today? Because if they say, oh, we've been wine tasting, then you say where. It will surprise you how many of them can't tell you the name of the winery.
Yeah.
Oh, we were at, the one with the big tree. For all of you who own wineries who think that your tasting rooms and your visitor centers are marketing projects that are building the brand, just give them a quiz when they walk out the door to see if they can remember the name of the winery. And I guarantee you they don't. No? And then the third thing is, oh, we were at Beronia. Ah, what wines did you like there? Immediately you know if they're serious about wine or not. If they say, we just thought we'd stop in at a winery. Have you been to some wineries? Yes, one over there. What did you like? They had a white that was good. You know what kind of wine consumer they are. If they come in and they say, yes, before we came to Beronia, we were at La Rioja Alta, and we tasted through the entire portfolio, and what we really liked was the Torredonia. And you say, these people are paying attention. And that's a different group. Now, when you have a large group, true story, I was in charge of the visitor center of a large winery in California. and I received a phone call from my boss, the vice president, and he said, Daryl Corti is bringing a group to the winery. Daryl Corti lives in Sacramento and knows more about wine than any person I have met. And I have met 15, 20 masters of wine and more than 100 master sommeliers, and Daryl Corti knows more than all of them put together. He's bringing a group to visit the winery. And I said, great. You know? And he said, we would like you to give the tour personally. I said, even better. So we walked into the first room, happened to be a barrel room because that winery was set up to go to start in the barrel room. And I said, when you put wine in a barrel, two things happen. And I looked at Daryl, and Daryl looked at me, and I said, Daryl, would you like to explain what happens when you put wine in a barrel? And he said, yes, well, actually, it absorbs some of the flavors of the oak, depending on how new the oak is, and sometimes you will always get a little bit of oxidation of the air coming through the oak. And he went on and gave a beautiful explanation. The next room was tanks. The tanks were at different temperatures. I said, Daryl, would you like to explain why we ferment white wines colder than red wines? Well, yes, I would. He said, beautiful explanation. I did the whole tour this way. We went back into the tasting room. I poured the wines. Daryl, would you like to make any comments about the wines? Well, yes, in fact. They left. They were very happy, all good. Whew.
Did they buy?
And I get a phone call from my boss. How did the tour go? And I said, I think it was fine. I think he seemed happy. I think everything was good. 3 days later, I received a phone call from the president of the winery. Paul, I received a letter from Daryl Corti today. I thought, oh God. He said it was the best tour he's ever been given at a winery. You have to be, anyone who studies theater, and trust me, if you are in hospitality, you are in theater. And anyone in theater will tell you the single most important part of any performance is not the people on the stage. It's the people in the audience. And if you get the people in the audience on your side and you get them to be part of the show, you're golden.
Last one.
Whoa.
I want to add one thing which contributes to what you've said before. And I was really impressed by the two questions, or by all the questions dealing with sustainability and all the concerns which are coming along with it. You know, we all are taught to believe in labels, like the organic farming label, which is matching a checklist, controlled and double-checked every year. Tick, 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 tick. Done, you get the label. We have a private auditor on top of that, who also ticks the boxes on the checklist, but gives us advice from best practice examples he knows from other places. Say, maybe you can even become better by thinking a little bit this way, that way, this way, that way. But the easiest and lowest cost tool of improve your sustainability level and your, how people appreciate the style of your winery and your wine tourism activities is ask your staff. Ask your staff how you can get better. Involve your staff in questions such as sustainability, customer relationship management. Just ask for their opinion. And I think this is the best tool you can use. And you can use it every day free of charge.
Excellent. Oh no, we're getting the dreaded sign. I want to thank Raquel, Joao, and Raul for a wonderful session, and I want to thank you because you were a good audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
They're going to want to take a photo.
The photo.
But don't forget the photo. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for yelling at me. That was the
Thank
right
you,
thing to
Paul.
do.
Thank you, Roland, Joao, and Raquel. Let's gather to the center of the stage, please, to take a picture for this fantastic group of experts. Congratulations. Let's give a big applause for them.
Okay.
Thank you. Bueno, pues a medida que nos acercamos ya al
As we're reaching the end of these two wonderful days, we want to offer you some ideas, some key ideas.
2 wonderful days, we would like to leave you with some insights to summarize this educational journey. Echemos la vista atrás, por lo tanto, de estos 2 días de trabajo e inspiración.
Let's look back on these 2 days, and then let's
take away for the months and years to come. So I invite back on stage from the UNWTO, Ms. Sandra Carvalho, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. You've been very brave. And it's quite difficult to actually share conclusions after the fantastic panel we just had. Paul, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, as Paul said, whenever we do surveys after events, we always ask what we could improve. And the question that always comes is, there was no time for questions. So we're very happy that there was time for questions, time for interaction, and time for actually sharing concerns. I'm going to share now just some of the key ideas that actually emerged from our discussions. I would ask someone for the clicker, because it's not on the podium, if possible, as I start. Really, we're going to work further on the conclusions, but those are just the insights of these days. Thank you so much. This is live television, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Perfecto. So, as I said, just a couple of ideas and also hopefully a task for us as a group to take forward. We like always to give us tasks between conferences, and this is not an exception. So the first, no, someone can maybe upstairs just change it and we continue. It's tired, it's normal. It's Friday, 5 o'clock. Anyway, I'm going to start with the first, and when it comes, we can talk about it. I think the first conclusion, and it came from the discussion with Joe, was put the you in the focus, and the you is the other. And I think that was very clear, the you in your consumer, in who is on the other side. Paul was just telling now, ask the person what they've done, where they've been, so put the you on the center. The second is, I think it came very strongly this morning also when we talk about data. You need to have information about your consumer, you need to understand it, you need to know it, but you don't need to overload yourself with data. Sometimes you need to actually just ask, which data do I need? And someone was saying, ask your staff as well. So sometimes the sources of information are other than the ones you're thinking. And it's very important to do that. Something that came very strongly also on this perspective of the you and the person was technology is very important, obviously, especially pre-experience and post-experience. While the person is having the experience, either in the winery or in the territory, as it was mentioned before, make sure she's the focus and also the relationship with the host is the focus. The second point we discussed was about the need to have national and regional strategies, and I would say that was the first conclusion. We need to have them. If there is no way that shared objectives, those structured roadmap is integrated into a common document, there will not be a development of a territory. Lydia talked about the focus on the place. Again, it's about the territory, about all actors, the communities including, we often forget about them, about the people, need to train them and to provide them skills, about profit, but to do so, obviously, someone was saying you need to be sustainable, but you also need to sustain yourself. En español, hay que ser sostenible, pero sostenerse, como decían en el panel anterior. So the business needs to be profitable. We need to invest in innovation, infrastructure development, promotion, and communication. But those strategies need to have very clear KPIs, a time frame, and they need to be evaluated. And they need to have a governance model, as it was very clearly defined by Virginia, which is really a patchwork of very different stakeholders, different sizes, different objectives, but need to be reflected in that final artwork. The third one is, what is this big issue that, big words like sustainability and governance that we've been all talking about? And it's really about something that came out also in the discussions is, it needs to be organized. It can't be something that, okay, we meet once a year to actually listen to the stakeholders and we have an advisory board. No, it needs to be something that's permanent, that is organized, transparent, that everyone knows how it works, that the information is public, online, people can consult it. It needs to have a set of objectives, resources, which is very important. You need to allocate resources to what you're going to do and you need to measure, and you have to have someone that manages all this and actually accounts afterwards, so accountability. And this needs to be done along the whole value chain. We spoke about data. 2 years ago when we met in Alentejo and again in Alba last year, we started this project with the OIV that Giorgio shared today. I think for the first time we did a mapping of which countries are doing what in wine tourism. That will be available at the beginning of next year. We need to build an harmonized framework. That has become very clear. That paper will bring a proposal for the sector to work upon, and we hope that we can advance with some pilots to test it on the ground. As Giorgio said, it's not an easy task, but we need to collaborate at our international level because we need to have a body like UNWTO or OIV that actually gathers and publishes that data so we can compare countries, but that will depend on countries being able to do the same at their national level and the regional level and the individual level. At the end, if we're measuring people that visit wineries or wine museums, then the winery needs to be engaged. Digitalization, I think this is obviously a transversal issue. It touches everything that we spoke about, from data to governance to sustainability. Communication, we know it opens new opportunities. It allows us to build data and analyze it in a much more effective way. But again, we need skills. And I think this is something that has also come very transversal to implement many of the digital objectives. You need to have skilled staff. And this comes to the same point we had, how do we attract the younger generations to actually work in the sector? Sustainability, understanding what it is. It was very interesting in the discussion this morning with Mentimeter. The biggest challenge that you identified about sustainability is understanding what it is. So I think we need to come back to the checklist that was talked before. Okay, what do I need to do? A, B, C, I can do this. I cannot do step 5 and 6 yet, but maybe next I can do that. Also, one of the points that came out of the panel now is how do we raise awareness among consumers to be more sustainable themselves? We've heard that post-pandemic there is a bigger quest for sustainability. Everyone answers that in surveys, but what is the behavior? And I think this is really where we can make a difference as well, explaining why we're doing certain things and not others, and incentivizing more sustainable behaviors. Also, one of the points that came from the discussion was start small, flexible, and adaptable. There's different stakeholders, different sizes. And one of the points as well that came, maybe not so strongly, but the colleague from Alentejo mentioned it, is at the end of the day, for example, their work in sustainability has contributed to build their brand. It has positioned them in a different way, and that's essential for wine tourism. Also, importantly mention the connections within the sector to share what you're doing in each of the areas. And again, ask your staff. I really think that we don't use a lot of the information that we have inside. Finally, and actually, if you remember, the title of this event was about being inclusive, sustainable, and digital, but with one objective, which was territorial cohesion. We truly believe that tourism can make a real difference in territories, especially in rural areas where opportunities can be built. But it is true, we need, and I hope the wineries don't take it wrong, we need also to take the wine tourism out of the wineries. We need it to bring it to the territory, the same way we need to bring the territory and the communities and other parts of the culture of the territory into the wineries. There needs to be that cross-fertilization. It brings jobs, businesses, and opportunities. That's very clear. And one of the points as well that was very clearly is we need to go beyond our sector. And I think this happens in all of the tourism industry. But in wine tourism, you actually have an added challenge. You have two sectors who already work sometimes in their own silos. So bringing them together is the first thing, but then bringing them together and go beyond the both sectors is another challenge. The future is sustainable. Not going to talk about climate change. I think we've talked about it enough. Technology and accountability. I think also if we want to make sure that what we are doing is relevant, we need to be accountable to our stakeholders and to our residents. Finally, talent and skills. It's clear that we need to improve and step up training in academic and professional. A lot of focus on shorter education with specific programs, but also probably training within the company among the different areas of the company to cover all aspects of wine tourism. And I'm really happy to say that actually, I always say conversations outside the stage are the most important. So we've been talking with some of the colleagues that have been here, and one of our takeaways for the next conference is actually to work on a document about mapping what is there in terms of education of wine tourism, what exists, what doesn't exist, where are the gaps, but also try to have some guidebook to orient and to provide guidance to destinations and to companies. So I thank the colleagues that actually offered, Coraline and Paul. So Paul will have a to-do list, but everyone was interested in working with us. The idea is that we take it from here to the next conference and that we can present the preliminary conclusions by then and hope that this has been a practical outcome that we all came together here. And finally, I think it was very interesting in the discussion on strategies that I know I was moderating. How do we do all this? And she said two things very important. One, listen, and Paul said it again, ask and then listen, and be generous. Our future generation, as Paul said, also agrees. So be generous with your knowledge. Sometimes difficult because time, we all are constrained, but it's the only way that we can actually make that patchwork work. So thank you so much. Those are just a few highlights for you to take back. I hope that you have your own, and I'm sure you do, and we look forward to continue this discussion and working together to progress wine tourism. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, Sandra, por estas palabras, estas conclusiones tan interesantes. Bueno, pues hemos llegado ya al momento de despedirnos. Este año hemos tenido el placer de recibir a profesionales y participantes inspiradores de todo el mundo. I hope you have all enjoyed your time here in La Rioja and take away some of the great ideas to implement into your businesses and countries. Seguro que coinciden conmigo en que han sido...
You probably agree with me that they have been two really enriching days.
Very enriching days. We appreciate all our speakers in person and online for making this event possible. So thank you very much. Para dar comienzo a la ceremonia.
To start the closing ceremony, I'd like to invite to the José Luis Pérez Pastor, his Counselor of Sports and Regional Minister of Culture, Tourism, Sports and Youth of the Government of La Rioja. Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, our meeting comes to an end, but I think that not everything ends today. There are so many things that hopefully have just begun. There have been many ideas floating in the air during these days, as we all can see, and I'm pretty sure that some seeds have been sowed and that will spread, hopefully too, in different soils. In this sense, this is a moment to pass the torch, to lend over the amphora, which symbolizes the continuation of the works on wine tourism. Provided that in this very moment we have simultaneous translation enabled, I would like to finish my speech in Spanish, this language so linked with this region and spoken by so many millions of people all around the world. Por tanto, ya en mi lengua materna, en el nombre...
So, in my native tongue and my mother tongue, and in the language of Sir Juan Inglés de la Cruz, Cervantes, Gabriel de Cervantes, and Gonzalo de Berceo, I would like to tell this, give this auditorium how grateful I am for having come to our land and for the work that they have ahead of them. I truly hope that you have enjoyed your stay in La Rioja, and I would also like to take advantage of this. I would like to ask you a favor. You're officially appointed ambassadors of La Rioja. I am begging you to tell people about Rioja, talk about it, and as far as possible, come with your friends, with your families, either for work purposes, for business purposes, or for leisure purposes. They're all good, and they will all be welcome in this land. We will always be delighted to receive you and to continue showing you everything that now you have only been able to glimpse.
Attention. Muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes.
Thank you very much, all of you, for your attention, and we'll see one another at the next conference.
Thank you. Can you please join us?
Muchas gracias, Sandra Carvalho. Thank you very much. Since you've already listened to me a lot, I'm just going to take advantage of this opportunity to express my deepest thanks to this land with the name of wine, the warm hospitality that we have enjoyed these days through José Luis, and also please tell the President that we really felt at home, and I am sure that everyone here will come back and they will talk about how much they have enjoyed these days in La Rioja. It's been a privilege to be here. I am sure that we don't have time with everything you had on your list, so you're going to have to either extend your stay here or you'll have to come back. We have also seen some very good examples. I would like to thank Santiago Vivanco, who welcomed us yesterday. because it was truly an opportunity, and it shows his commitment and his leadership in this sector. I would also like to thank the Secretary of State in Spain for the appointments. Because of the recent appointments, our colleagues have had to return to Madrid. But the country is an inspiration, is a leader in the tourist sector, and we are truly proud as the only agency of the United Nations that has its headquarters in Spain. I think that we have a roadmap. We share, despite our different geographical locations, the same challenges, and we can also learn a lot from one another. And I think that this is the most valued aspect that we have in the conversations, the connections that we have for later, and the work that is coming after that. I would also like to conclude by thanking the team at La Rioja, Virginia, and her team, and other people behind them, because they're the people who have made it, everything possible, the translators and the technician, and my team, and Zoe and Chloe and Alexandra, who have made everything possible. And finally, these days, I have heard rumors of 2024 is going to be in. People told me nobody actually guessed, so it's certainly going to be a surprise. Yeah.
Invite on stage the representative of the 2024 UNWTO Wine Tourism Conference, which will take place in Armenia. And please welcome on stage Mrs. Averik Sogbatyan from the International Cooperation Department of the Tourism Committee of the Ministry of Economy of Armenia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear Regional Minister, dear Sandra, colleagues and friends, I stand before with immense gratitude and pride as Armenia is bestowed with the honor of hosting the 8th UNWTO Global Conference on Wine Tourism in 2024. My sincere thanks extend to Spain and the beautiful region of La Rioja for graciously hosting this year's conference. Your warm hospitality and commitment to the spirit of this event have set an inspiring precedent. To the esteemed members of UNWTO, I express profound gratitude for entrusting Armenia with the privilege of hosting this prestigious gathering next year. Armenia, with its rich and ancient history in winemaking, eagerly anticipates the opportunity to contribute to the dialogue on the future of wine tourism. Armenians' winemaking tradition dates back over 6,000 years, and we are eager to share our passion, expertise, and the unique flavors of our vineyards with the world. The combination of ancient winemaking traditions, indigenous grape varieties, diverse terroir, and a deep culture connection to make wine makes Armenian wines truly special and worth exploring. You'll even get the chance to explore the oldest winery in the world discovered to date, the Arani 1 cave, 6,100 years old. The conference in 2024 will be a celebration of our collective commitment to advancing wine tourism, fostering collaboration and appreciating the culture significant on the beverage. We look forward to welcoming each of you to Armenia, where our landscapes echo with the stories of our vineyards and the spirit of hospitality flows as generously as our finest wines. Together, let us make the UNWTO Wine Conference in 2024 a memorable and fruitful journey into the heart of Armenians' winemaking heritage. And the main things There is no strangers in Armenia, just family you just haven't met. And we look forward to welcoming you to Armenia. Thank you. See you in Yerevan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arvik. Congratulations. Now, I want you remain on the stage, please, for the official passing of the iconic amphora by the 2023 host to the 2024 host. I kindly ask officials to stand up at the center, please, para la entrega oficial de la icónica ánfora por parte del anfitrión de 2023 al anfitrión 2024. Se colocan ya y esperamos.
Okay, now they're in place, and now we're waiting for that amphora. José Luis Pastor.
Arabic, in the presence of Sandra Carbao from the UNWTO. What a significant moment this is. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you all. We are already very much looking forward to seeing you next year. While I kindly ask the officials to go back on their seats, let's have a look at what is waiting for us next year in Armenia.
History is only valuable when you learn from it.
Արենի Քեյվի հայտնաբերումը Հայաստանում փոխեց գինու պատմությունը եւ գինու մշակույթը եւ շատ արագ դռներ բացվեց.
We had been making wine for over 6,100 years, and then we hadn't at one period. So the people realized this is ours and we need to own up to it. So now to be able to do everything ourselves, we're more free to experiment. And that's what we're doing right now, just to find our own. And it's difficult, but that's the beauty of it, the unknown.
Armenia is very unique as a wine growing country. We have different microclimates, different regions, grape varieties that don't grow anywhere else in the world. We have the raw materials, we have the terroir, we have the climate, the soil.
This is the exact shape for the RNE. They still small now, but soon they will grow big like my palm. This garas breathes, so inhales and exhales, so it gives more structure to the wine. We are going to use it and tell the story to the people, because this is history.
Sadian Street has turned into the wine street of Armenia, of Yerevan. Every night is packed with people drinking wine outside. It shows how much of a community we actually have here. Now we have wine festivals, we have wine brands. The wine industry is trying to catch up with the demand of tourism in Armenia, because now that we are making great wine, the next step is creating the infrastructure for it.
If you do something with love, that's when you see the greatest results. You think about the future, but you also live in now. And that's what I love about this country.
Next year is in Armenia. It's going to be amazing. Looks amazing, doesn't it? Bueno, el próximo año lo hemos visto.
Next year we'll see it. It looks wonderful. It looks really exciting. The celebration of this conference. Ha sido un gran placer estar con vosotros.
We thank all of you who have come to Logroño, as well as those following us online, and all speakers for their great insights and for sharing their experiences and knowledge. Agradecemos a todos los que han venido.
We'd like to thank all of the people who have come to Logroño and La Rioja, as well as those people who are following us online, and all the speakers for their valuable ideas and for sharing their ideas.
Today, discovering this wonderful region, its people and its wine. You may now go and enjoy the performance of Feten Feten, a musical duo who will blow you away. They await you as you leave this hall. Pueden empezar a disfrutar ahora mismo con la actuación de Feten.
You can start enjoying the performance of Feten Feten, a group of artists that they're expecting you just outside this room.
Of this hall, and remember, please return the headphones at the exit. Thank you very much. See you next year. Thank you.